No?
Have either of y'all ever auditioned for or been in just like straight plays? Because I'm not much of a singer, I ask around. I don't know, I'm more interested in just acting in general, and so I was just wondering if that audition process is different or if whatever.
I've gone in for plays. I did a play, there's a festival called the Fringe Festival in New York. It's like a festival of all new work that's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like new.
Eclectic. It's a little of everything.
It can be like musicals, it can be plays, it can be like art pieces, you know, random whatever. But that's just like, I had scenes from it to do and didn't have a song.
But there are cities, like New York has everything here, but it is very much Broadway musical theater as its focus. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, there are some plays. Like our friend is producing a play called
Born Yesterday.
Born Yesterday, exactly. And he has produced a couple other plays. Hamlet with Jude Law and La Bette with David Hyde Pierce. And so, yeah, actually at my agency they represent a lot of straight actors and not too many musical theater people. However, I think that that's kind of awesome because when you go in for like TV stuff, I feel like they take you more seriously because you don't have musical theater on your resume. You know, they don't think you're musical theater, which is not really what musical theater is anymore.
Right.
I mean, the new stuff is not like that. I mean, Spring Awakening and In the Heights and Next to Normal, all of those shows, they're like plays with music rather than musicals like they're doing a revival of Anything Goes. Like that's very old school musical. Like that's what all musicals were like, you know. But yeah, I would consider, if you're a straight actor, especially, I would consider like trying to do some TV stuff too, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
Any other questions?
How do you get an agent and like know which ones are good?
I got my agent from having a bunch of them come see me at Spring Awakening. And then I just sort of like met with all of them and, you know, went on gut instinct, you know, had a lot of, a lot of opinions from a lot of friends who had either, you know, had friends that had been with them or, you know, there's a reputation that precedes all of it. I was very rushed. I, you know, have switched agencies since the one I was with in Spring Awakening, and it was like a very rushed decision because I had to make a decision so quickly. But I like moved to New York not knowing anyone, and it was like, you know, it was a different circumstance.
Who was it?
I probably shouldn't say.
Oh,
Should I say? Oh, they were Hardy Caleppo.
Oh, okay, yeah. But you're not with them anymore. You're with
Then I have Hardy Curtis.
Oh, they're really good.
Yeah. See?
I met with them and they didn't
Who are you
like
with?
me. They don't want me. Stone Manners.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah.
And the Priscilla.
Yeah. How did you know that?
You know, just like knowing stuff. That was a scene. But yeah, there's just a lot of opinions. There's a book. There's like a New York actor's handbook that like lists all these different agents and has like, you know, like what size they are, like boutique, really small, really big. You know, what they specialize in, what their reputation is. I don't know what the actual book, what the title is.
There's
Is it the Kate Callan ones?
No, it's like got like
it's
a
like
cartoon on the
yellow
front.
cover. Oh. Read it.
Maybe this.
Yeah, if you go to the drama bookstore. But I mean, but you guys are. Wait, where do you guys live?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay. Do they do? I'm sure. You guys do like commercials and stuff in Charlotte, right?
And it's getting bigger because North Carolina's opening up.
Wilmington, North Carolina is kind of a...
Brooklyn Decker's original agent. He does a lot of stuff with kids in Charlotte. He has an open call every month.
Oh, really? That's great.
Yeah, and he's had a couple. He does great stuff. I've seen kids make like $40,000 in a year in commercials locally in Charlotte.
That's amazing. Yeah.
JTA is a big organization down there as well.
Yeah. I would get. Do you guys have headshots, or does anybody? Yeah. Or like have some of your photographer friends take some headshots of you and send them out to any of the agencies that are in your town. That's what I did in Chicago. I just sent out my headshot. I got my headshots done and sent them out to all the agencies. And then I got a lot of calls back, and then I met with people, and I was like, okay, who do I want to be with? Who do I vibe with? But it's so much harder in New York City to get an agent. So hard. I did submissions when I first moved here, and I had a Broadway credit, and it was hard to get people to call me back because a lot of times they don't really consider submissions like that. They most of the time will consider you if you are recommended by another client.
I actually worked as an assistant at an agency. It's actually, oddly enough, I'm now repped by that agency, but I lived in LA and I worked for 6 months for an agency there. And I started, as everybody does, in the mailroom. And here's the thing of it. You get a lot of people coming in, and there was like a hierarchy of consideration. If a casting director or another industry professional recommended somebody, that person would get an interview with an agent and would be strongly considered. The next tier would be if, and then the next tier down would be if another client said, hey, I've got this friend, I think he'd be a great addition, or he or she would be a great addition. They would also talk to that person. But another thing is also, particularly in commercials, is are you unique and how can we use you? For instance, unfortunately, ladies, young blonde women, young women in their 20s, there are a lot of you out there. Same thing, handsome young men, early 20s. There's a lot of you out there. When I was working for the agency, one thing they needed were kind of funky guys. They needed, there was commercials where they needed they said we need like tall, skinny African Americans with really wild hair. And we had a few of those in our, basically as clients, and we send them out and they would get work because there was a thing, they were doing like the Budweiser commercials, they were doing things where they needed that style, and we didn't have as many people of it, there was a limited amount of talent out there that we could submit. So uniqueness can sometimes work in your favor.
Absolutely.
But it's a challenge, and it's, you're also at the whim of a lot of trends. The guy who, maybe like the geek type is popular in the 90s because there's all these tech commercials and you're doing tech support. Then all of a sudden the bubble bursts and now you're doing beer commercials or sports drink commercials and you need big buff guys. So you never know what's going to be in vogue at any one time.
But going back to Courtney's comment about like choosing schools, definitely think about the reputation. Think about who does a showcase, who basically you go through training, but then you also school is about who you meet.
Yeah.
So when I was at Northwestern, they had a program called American Music Theater Project, and I did a new musical with Gary Griffin, who was at the time directing Color Purple. I did a musical with Oscar Eustis, who's the head of the Public Theater, and Michael Greif, who directed Rent and Next to Normal. And this was all while I was in school. And J. Michael Friedman wrote the music, who just wrote Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson.
Mm-hmm. And Adam Cantor's coming today, right?
Yeah, and Adam and I both went to Northwestern.
And Adam booked Rent through Michael
Greif, from doing the show that we had done at Northwestern, he booked then Rent on Broadway to be the final mark in Rent from working with Michael at school. When I was in callbacks for Spring Awakening, and Michael Mayer saw my resume Michael Greif, and we talked about Michael Greif. It's just part of school is training, and it's also about connections and who you know.
Paul Kanan came to our school, taught a class, and helped a little guy that's young get an agent. Now Carson Adler, he's just went in for Priscilla Queen of the Desert for the boy.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's been in for Pugsley, been in for Billy. He's been in, and Paul Kanan made that call for Sam. Y'all know Sam Wilson. Paul Kanan took an interest in him. The next thing you know, Sam's auditioning for Nancy Carson in New York, and now he flies up here and auditions. So, and that was a little class that he came, that after school one we did a couple years ago.
Yes.
So.
Wow.
And you need to thank your teachers and your everybody that helps you bring you to things like this, because
that's huge.
Yeah.
So it's such an amazing opportunity. I remember when I was in college and high school and doing things like this, I don't think I fully understood how awesome it was to be able to come to New York and get this information that we never knew. And it's gosh, I wish that I would have known that.
Nobody tells you.
Yeah.
You do all this training,
I don't
helping
learn
him
that.
into the industry. I did go to Michigan, not in the musical theater, but theater program. And the musical theater kids all have agents. I mean, their
All of
showcase is everyone in the industry attends it, and the follow-up is there. Jack O'Brien, I have a friend who's actually from Charlotte, North Carolina. He went to Northwest, former Jackie Fishman student. He assisted Jack O'Brien on a project in school, and now he's like doing everything with Jack O'Brien, helping on that new Andrew Lloyd Webber project and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And it just sort of happens. If you're in a school that brings in those people, it just happens organically as opposed to it being such a struggle to figure it out.
So thank your parents for that tuition they pay every year.
Amen.
Well, thank you all so
Thank you so
much.
much.